Ladies and gentlemen, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I saw this game called Cthulhu's Bedtime Stories on the Steams, and I thought, hell, why not make this problem worse? So, the game is about 30 minutes long, and there's about maybe 2 DLCs, each 10 minutes each, so we'll do a full playthrough of all the content, just for funsies. Before I do get involved in that though, I've written a couple of novellas, some short stories, which are very similar, I would say, to H.P. Lovecraft's Eldritch Victorian stuff. Is a big influence on my writing. It's got a couple of good reviews as well, so if that's your kind of vibe, follow the Amazon links down below to go grab yourself a copy. If money's a bit of an issue, because we are in the middle of an economic crisis, I do understand, the Patreon link down below will lead you to... one of my novellas is on there, and you can subscribe to the Patreon for £1, or the equivalent of wherever you are in the world. So you can just subscribe, grab the PDF, and then unsubscribe. You know, so it's just an easy, cheap way. We're inclusive, boys and girls. That's what we are, financially. So anyway, we'll just hop straight in, shall we? So, Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work focused on story and atmosphere. No difficult choices, action sequences, inventory management, blah blah blah, all that stuff.
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
And during this game we'll encounter interactive elements, which it's just a point and click, kind of.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
So we're starting off strong. We're not...
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Given a choice between death or forgetfulness, I'd always choose forgetfulness.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
It's always the bloody Germans. They're the real Eldritch horror.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
The use of U-boats. The true underhanded tactics of naval combat. Actually, no, sorry, that was World War II, wasn't it? Yeah, World War I, it was just merchant ships and, get back.
So that our vessel was made
Maybe,
a
I don't know.
legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
So plenty of sauerkraut for everyone. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids, who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and airly siege weapons. During World War I, the Brits used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasise their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on the 27th of July 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated, no quarter will be given, prisoners will not be taken, whoever falls into your hands is forfeit. Just as 1,000 years ago the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend, may the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever dare to look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. Straight Germans breaking the Geneva Convention? Crazy. Never ever heard that again. You could read the Discover Trivia immediately, I'll go back to them later, blah blah blah. Yeah, we might not do too many of them, just because I think it breaks the story a bit. But nice little fact there, I like that.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
Well, that's good. We've got food. We've got a boat. We're English, I think.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator.
Oh, the south?
Of the longitude,
even worse.
I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
It's a beautiful game, though. Look at the way that the moon just reflects off the thing. Do we have any facts about the stars? No, I can't see the northern lights. Not south of the equator, anyway.
The
The southern lights?
And for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
I like it. Given the choice between being captives by some very polite Germans, we're risking life and limb just because, no, none of that, thank you very much. Let's have some water.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
Yeah, don't stare at the sun, mate. Don't do well for your eyes.
The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Oh dear. Well, I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going. Alright, Squid, what do you have to say for yourself?
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
God, it's like we're stuck on the Yorkshire moors, just more tentacly.
For there was in the air, and in the rotting soil, a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Is it the writhing mass of tentacles? Is that what's chilling you to your core?
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
I like that. It's not quite like a sunrise, is it? It's not even like a sunset. It's like as if the sky itself is swallowing everything of light.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
A lack of pigeons is certainly a concern. Seagulls, not pigeons.
For several
sea
hours
pigeons.
I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for travelling purposes in a short time.
Ooh, I do not like that undulating mound over there.
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Ooh. Alright, give us some food. Let's go for a walk.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease.
Beautiful imagery. Love that. Sun reflecting
The odor
off
of
the
the
ground.
fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Can I walk? Oh, no. No walking in this.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
Any other interesting things we can have a look at? What are you? You look like some sort of Tyrannid-esque grabby hand. Oh, whale. Ha. Oh, that's a sad-looking whale. He's not having a whale of a time, is he? Woo! So I'm ruining the immersion, aren't I? I can't help it.
I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
These are thick tentacles. Very... And they're glossy as well. Too shiny.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
So tomorrow we'll go mountain climbing. That's fun. A fun
I know
excursion.
not why my dreams were so wild that night. But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain.
Oh, the phrase gibbous moon. That's a phrase you hear a lot in Lovecraft writing. What does gibbous mean? I'd Google it now, but...
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Ooh, eminence. Love that. Just anything HP Lovecraft, just the vocabulary in it alone is just tasty. All right, let's climb up a mountain.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Ooh.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
Oh, well, if the declivity is very gradual, then may as well have a look.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
And under the gibbous gaze of a distant rectangle.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
I'm getting Necron Monolith vibes from this. But very pretty all the same.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. but I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith.
Ah, necromonolith, there we go.
Whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Alright, let's have a look at the dirt. Severe lack of other things to click on. I thought we were going to get loads of tidbits of information. Oh.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith.
Ooh, the word Cyclopean's in bold, it must be important.
On whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
Well, we've got a picture of a seahorsey up there. I do like seahorses.
It was the pictorial carving,
good.
however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Well, let's have a look. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later work, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountain of Madness and the Nameless City. Mountain of Madness, oh, amazing stuff. Love that. Journals and character notes, The Shadow Out of Time and The Haunters in the Dark. In islands emerging from the ocean, the Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Meager and the Whispering of the Darkness. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon. Let's get the details in order not to spoil the ending. So yeah, it's I completely forget what it's called, but there's a form of storytelling, which is how the fourth novella in my collection of novellas is written, in the sense that it's not actually told directly by anyone, it's just a collection of documents curated together. Curated together? Collected? Whatever word you would use for that. And that way it gives like the chance to miss out key bits of information, or maybe mix up pieces of information so the dates are split up a little bit so it can save spoilers or twist endings till later, which I quite like, and I think I did a quite good job in my book, personally. That one's called The Finger Pot, for anyone who's interested.
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
Now what is a bass? I assume bass, not the fish bass.
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well.
Ooh.
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
That's a very common trope in Lovecraftian stuff. It's like, I dare not speak its name or utter the words even in writing because it will make me go mad. I like it. It then gives the reader open interpretation to think of whatever it is. But he uses it in every single story, and after a while it becomes more of a comedy rather than a gripping horror. But, you know, we all have our ways of writing.
Beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
Now the bottom three look very dark and evil. That middle one just looks happy to be there. Look, those wide eyes, that big smile. I'm getting Wednesday my dude vibe memes from that.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Well, I mean, if these are pre-Neolithic man, their artwork's pretty solid. Get this on DeviantArt.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little.
Well, at least he didn't bother us. That's nice of him. Oh, this makes me feel a little bit sick.
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
I'm worried now that all the sea animals have now died. They're a lot less wriggly. Probably the poor weather. Surely we're safe now. We're back at the boat.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital.
And here we find the true horror. Having to pay for our own medical bills in the form of not tax.
Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean.
Oh, topical. Oh, my goodness. Blooming healthcare system, what are you like? Oh.
In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
That's fair enough. Any other things? Ooh! Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticisms written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again. For the first time since his teenage years, Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt, from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the Conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and the and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of the human animal shall be miraculously changed. Which, to be fair, what is the phrase? In times of peace, prepare for war. Because no one's going to punch you if you can punch them harder. Which makes sense. And that's why, let's be real here. A lot of what Lovecraft said, I think... Let's address the elephant in the room. The racism stuff. Not great, obviously. I wonder if that stuff came from a place of fear. If you're familiar with how he grew up and stuff, with his very weird relationship with his mother and father, his dependency on... it was a very sickly child and stuff. I wonder if a lot of his more negative social commentary comes from just a pure place of fear. That's what I like to believe anyway. Just because the man who was such an influence on my writing. I'd like to believe that the negative aspects of him were just his wild imagination interpreting race and stuff like that in the worst way possible. At least I hope. I do hope. Any more interesting tidbits? No. Okay, door. Let me out.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
The god of fish. Dagon, or Dagon, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped through the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in the Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warden in one of the Babylonian texts. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. A little bit of historical facts for you there, boys and girls. Any more cool facts? No, are you the next step onwards? No, before we go, go on, give us more fish facts. Nope. Okay, fair enough.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Oh, look, there's a Necronomicon. Oh, it's got a Necronomicon there. Realistically, is a Necronomicon going to be sitting around on a desk in some ethnologist's study? Probably not. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involving introducing the good versus evil doctrine, Derleth was a devout Catholic, to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misinterpreted in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Yeah, all of Cthulhu's original works are kind of... If you're interpreting them gracefully, they're all happening in their own kind of universe. They're all happening in the same, more or less, universe. But it was August who kind of woven them all together into one succinct kind of narrative. And I do believe that Lovecraft wrote something stupid like hundreds and hundreds of letters to a lot of his friends. And some other guys would they would write things in the same kind of universe, if I'm not remembering that incorrectly. But yeah, it was like a collective fan fiction almost, but not a fan fiction, because we're all friends. A friend fiction. There we go. That's what we're going to call it. Got candles here. Any more interesting things? There's a clock. So I really need to stop hitting my microphone. Anything else? What are you saying, lady? What are you thinking of in these trying times? Come on, there must be something here. You haven't brought us all the way over here just to idle at a blooming statue. Nope, okay, fair enough, it has. Unless that was like a glitch or something.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
Gibbous, there's that word again. Love it.
I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Oh, well.
Often I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Oh, well, that's like several Godzillas coming in at once. Wonderful stuff.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
Oh dear, it's the Germans. The back. Anything else to look at quickly before we... Nope, no facts are present. Just the slippery Germans.
It shall not find me.
Oh, hello.
God, that hand! The window! The window!
Oh no. Oh well, we'll see you in a bit. We're taking the quick way out. I'm sure we're okay. We'll just go back to San Francisco hospital. Cool, that was nice. Happy ending for all. So I suppose we'll just play the other ones then and see if maybe the ending is. So I did not unlock most of those things. Clearly, I was not clicking on enough. That's fine. Let's have a look at the DLC. So the little box. The little box is a short 5-10 minute adaptation of a story by Howard Phillips Lovecraft, written when he was about 7 years old. Isn't that exciting? Original words and spellings have been kept. Oh, that's cute. I like that. When I was a young man, I really wanted to be the youngest author in the whole wide world, and I was like 10 years old. And I found out about Lovecraft writing a book at 7 years old, and I thought, shit, too late, goddammit. Oh well, let's get involved.
Heave to! There's something floating to the leeward.
Leeward is... there?
The speaker was a short, stockily built man whose name was William Jones. He was the captain of a small catboat in which he and a party of men were sailing at the time the story opens.
What is that shiny thing on the floor there? Yeah. Howard Phillips Lovecraft was born on August 20, 1890 at 9 p.m. in Providence, Rhode Island. The exact date when The Little Glass Bottle was written is unknown. Young Howard probably penned it in 1896 or 1897. It was first published more than 20 years after his death as part of the anthology The Shuttered Room and Other Pieces, 1959. Lovecraft himself regarded The Little Glass Bottle as a youthful attempt at a humorous story. Scans of the handwritten original can be viewed in the digital repository of the Brown University in Providence. Cool!
Aye, aye, sir, answered John Towers, and the boat was brought to a standstill. Captain Jones reached out his hand for the object, which he now discerned to be a glass bottle.
Wonderful spelling for a 7-year-old as well.
Nothing but a rum flask that the men on the passing boat threw over, he said, but from an impulse of curiosity, he reached out for it.
All right.
It was a rum flask, and he was about to throw it away when he noticed a piece of paper in it. He pulled it out, and on it read the following. January 1st, 1864. I am John Jones, who writes this letter.
I am John Jones, who writes this letter. Yeah, you can tell
My
the kid's
ship
written
is
this.
fast sinking with the treasure on board. I am where it is marked on the enclosed chart.
On the enclosed chart, you say?
Captain Jones turned the sheet over, and the other side was a chart.
That is lovely. I hope that these are the original drawings. Here is Australia. And here is the Indian Ocean. Ah. Dotted lines represent course we took.
On the edge were written these words.
You just want to give him a little hug, don't you, and say, well done, my boy, well done. It's just a real shame that his parents weren't lovely to him. Which is the greatest crime, I feel.
Dotted lines represent course we took. Towers, said Captain Jones excitedly. Read this. Towers did as he was directed. I think it would pay to go, said Captain Jones. Do you? Just as you say, replied Towers.
I also love that they've got a child to read this. It's...
We'll charter a schooner this very day, said the excited captain.
And now they've changed the graphics as well to be a little bit more... Oh, you know that TV program, Arthur? Where all the outlines are just really thick black lines. Yeah, I like this.
All right, said Towers.
All right. Any other facts and figurines? Nope. Okay, onwards, Towers. Ship shape and Bristol fashion.
So they hired a boat.
Nice. We like boats. Ooh, very aesthetics. Love a good life. Oh, what they're called? Lighthouse. That's what they're called. Go on, give us some more facts. I'm hungry now. I was originally not too keen on the facts because we were breaking up the story, but it's given me something to read. I like reading. More of an audiobook man myself, but... Well, nowadays, because you're busy and stuff, aren't you? But, yeah. When the opportunity to read happens,
Started off governed
it's good.
by the dotted lines of the chart.
Yeah, look at us. Bunch of boys on a boat. Emerald green sea. The wind through our hair. We've got a map. H.P. Lovecraft learned to read at the age of 4. He quickly became interested in exact scientists, especially chemistry. As a 9-year-old, he even started publishing his own amateur magazine, the Scientific Gazette, and sometime later the series The Chemistry. Around 1900, the future master of horror developed an interest in Antarctica and began writing treatise on expeditions to the continent. This undoubtedly influenced one of his most famous works, At the Mountain of Madness, written 30 years later. As a 12-year-old, Lovecraft discovered astronomy, which he later considered his most moving experience, realizing the immensity of the cosmos had a huge impact on his worldview and work, later the foundations for the cosmic horror genre. The majesty of the concept of the expanding universe still makes me shudder in a unique manner. A Confession of Unfaith, 1922. Yeah, if you are fans of board games, there is a wonderful game called Eldritch Horror. There's Arkham Horror, which is set in Arkham, Eldritch Horror, which is set in the world. Essentially, imagine like Scooby-Doo, except that there's a chance that Scooby could get strangled. You play as a bunch of people from the Lovecraft mythology, and you try and stop an elder god from taking over the world. And one of the expansion packs for it is going to Antarctica, and you get to see like Meagers and elder things, and it's chef's kiss. One of the best board games I've ever played in my life. So there we go. Onwards, Skipper.
In 4 weeks, they reached the place where directed.
Fantastic. Well done, crew.
And the divers went down.
Alright, divers, on your way. Find what's what. Ah, fish. Crazy. Oh, this is what's going to stop being child-friendly, isn't it? And be a little bit darker. Yeah, are these sharks? Just a school of sharks? That's the worst kind of school. Okay. Ooh, hello. Whipple Van Buren Phillips, Lovecraft's grandfather, was a very important figure in his life, as the writer said himself. My beloved grandfather became the centre of my universe, in scattered letters. Van Buren Phillips introduced his grandson to various works of art he brought from his travels, exchanged letters with him, and helped him develop his passions. He largely replaced Lovecraft's dead father. Interestingly, he also cured him of his fear of the dark by encouraging him to walk through a series of dark rooms. Young Howard's grandfather was probably the only family member to tell Lovecraft improvised mass... Sorry, let me start again. Young Howard's grandfather was probably the only family member to tell Lovecraft improvised mystery tales, which undoubtedly influenced his later work. Oh, that's nice. I didn't know he had a grandfather like that. And why he's represented by these terrifying eyes, but... Ah, good. Got a little joy in his life then. Ooh. We found a bottle. And where's... Oh, it's asking us to go back up. Fair enough, game.
And came up with an iron bottle.
God, for a second I was like, ah, shit, someone's been decapitated. Damn it, Towers, you had one job.
They found in it the following lines scribbled on a piece of brown paper.
Oh, I don't like this. It's going to turn dark pretty soon.
December 3rd, 1880. Dear Searcher, excuse me for the practical joke I have played on you.
Ah, it was a practical joke.
But it serves you right to find nothing for your foolish act. Well, it does, said Captain Jones. Go on. However, I will defray your expenses to and from the place you found your bottle. I think it will be $250, so that amount you will find in an iron box. I know where you found the bottle, because I put this bottle here. And the iron box. And then found a good place to put the second bottle. Hoping the enclosed money will defray your expenses some I close. Anonymous.
Ah, I spelled anonymous with a Y. I assume that's the incorrect way to spell it. Unless, of course, I'm the incorrect one. In which case, ugh. Ah, I like that. There are a few puzzling elements in the little glass bottle. For example, the number 20.0.00, which is not a typo as the amount appears in the text 3 times. It's not entirely clear why Lovecraft decided to write out the number this way, and what he meant by it. While publishers and translators interpret it in various ways, our opinion is he most likely meant $250. The map used in the game replicates the original version drawn by Lovecraft for this story. Did you notice that the landmark on the sign was signed as Australia? A simple typo, or maybe young Howard was already creating his own island, his own lands, and unknown lands in his imagination. Has he spelt it wrong? I didn't even notice that. It's also puzzling that the dates in the letters in both the bottles are almost 17 years apart. Oh, but that's just a kid's writing, isn't it? That's just a child writing. That's great.
I'd like to kick his head off, said Captain Jones. Here, diver, go and get the $250.
Oh, and they're still keeping it written in the text, in the speech bubbles. I like that. Fine, okay then. Let's go get that $250. Very cute.
In a minute, the diver came up bearing an iron box.
Nice. Ah, my doubloons!
Inside it was found $250.
Inside it was found, yes.
It defrayed their expenses, but I hardly think that they will ever go to a mysterious place as directed by a mysterious bottle.
That's a nice, wholesome story. I remember when I was in year 5 and I was writing, I was quite the avid writer back then, and I wrote a story about a child who was being very naughty in school. And the teacher at the time was like, oh yes, because it's like Dennis the Menace, and it's, you know, we like stories about naughty kids because they have the opportunity to change into good kids. And one lesson I finished the story, and I ended it on the note of, and next he's going to do something the teacher will really, really like. Because I was going to do what Lovecraft just did here, which was basically, nothing bad happens, everything is good, and all the expenses are paid for. You end up, everyone learns a lesson, no badness happens. And the teacher was like, you can't write that down like that, you've got to, you know, if only good things happen, it won't be a story. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess bad things are naturally part of stories. Which was a terrible thing, because that's not always the case. If you've ever watched Violet Evergarden, the film, where basically it sets up as a negative thing happening, and then for the rest of the film, it's just lovely positive things happening. One of my favourite films ever. Completely forget what it's called, but Violet Evergarden, one of the few animes I can actually stomach. Okay, so going from that very positive story, we've now got, hold on, DLC, we've now got one last box, the Railway Horror DLC. Oh, we've actually got 2 more DLCs. Huh, okay, fair enough. We'll just go through them all. Oh, have I not bought you? You bastard. Oh, that's because you aren't out yet. Okay, fair enough. In that case, we won't do you. We will do you. You're also not one. Okay. In that case, I think that's us done. Sort of a sudden end there. I was expecting a little bit more, but there isn't, apparently. That was kind of fun. Hopefully I can sleep now that I've drank a little bit and smoked a bit and waffled on for about maybe 40-45 minutes or so. If you like the stuff, then please consider having a look at the YouTube channel. If you like Warhammer stuff, that's what we mainly do here. Patreon, if you want to have a look at the book that I mentioned earlier on, like I say, PDF, just subscribe, download the PDF, and then unsubscribe. Or you can go onto the Amazon link below and purchase the whole book. Like I say, positive reviews everywhere. Bro, amazing stuff. Anyway, mine's been Mr. Landshark. Pleasure as always, never a chore. I will see you in a bit. Peace.